Putting data in a table is a great way to see patterns in relationships. For instance, what do we notice about this table? Well, if I work 1 hour babysitting, I will make $8. If I work 2 hours, I will make 16. But what if I wanted to know how much I would make if I worked 7 hours? I can use the patterns in this table to help me make a prediction. Notice that the left column is labeled with an X and the right is labeled with a Y. That helps me know that the left column, the number of hours I babysit, is actually the independent variable, and everything in that column is associated with X values. The amount of money that I earn is the dependent variable, and it's associated with the Y values. So when I'm looking for patterns, I can see that the change in my X value from the first to the second row is an increase of 1. And I can see off to the right in my Y values that the difference between 8 and 16 from the first and second row is a value increase of 8. Over in the X, I can see that between the second and third, that the change between 2 and 3 is also an increase of 1. Back in the Y value, the same rows, the change from the second to the third is an increase in 8. And as I go down my X values, I can see that that holds true all the way down. And on the Y values, that pattern also holds true because 24 to 32 is an increase of 8, and so is 32 to 40. So we can note that the change in Y values equals 8, and the change in X values is equal to 1. Now, it would be really nice if I didn't have to write this out every single time. It would be really cool if there was a symbol that I could write down instead, kind of like an emoji. Well, as it happens, there is. It's a triangle. It represents the 4th letter in the Greek alphabet, and it's called delta. So instead of writing it out, I can say delta x. And in this case, it equals 1. I can do the same for the y. I can say that delta y in this case is equal to 8. Now what's interesting is that if I were to look back at this table, and instead of looking at it one row and the next row, what if I looked at the change in the X value from 3 to 5, and I noted that the change in it wasn't 1 anymore, instead it was 2. So if I look at the corresponding Y values, I can see that the change from 24 to 40 is not 8 anymore, it's actually 16. But you told me that the delta x was 1 and delta y was 8. Well, let's look at this a little more closely. If I write my delta y as 16, if I write my delta x as 2, and we turn this into a ratio or a fraction, we can see that we can reduce that. 16 divided by 2 is now equal to 8. If we do the same thing up above, and we turn this one into a fraction, now we have 8 over 1, and guess what that reduces to? That is also 8. So even though we used a different way to identify the change in x, we still ended up with the same answer in this table. That's helpful because what if not all the x and y values were entered into the table? It allows us still to be able to identify the delta x and the delta y. Now it's important to know that this pattern was true for this table, but patterns can change from table to table. Sometimes you have a different set of patterns, and it's possible that you may not even have a pattern in your table at all.